Shalom to everyone. Everyone has quirks, wouldn't you say? Some of them get on other people's nerves. Now I'm going to state the obvious. I have many quirks. Talk to Tom Barnett. He's taught with me for 13 years. Talk to Becky and Nathan. All these people have to live with them. And they're very tolerant people, thank goodness. So here is one of my most annoying quirks. And don't come back to me with them now. I mean, I only have 10 months. So when I'm doing this, just smile, okay? I don't want you to come back with a hammer and say, oh, you're doing it again. Okay. I'll be in a conversation, and I'll make a point. The person will acknowledge the point. I will repeat myself. The person will acknowledge the point. I'll repeat myself. Do you see a pattern here? And two things probably will happen. At some point, I'll become aware of myself and stop, or my wife Jane will tell me enough already. Or she'll say it maybe with a little bit more strength than that. Okay. Repetition, however, in the Torah is always significant. It's not seen as something bad. When the rabbis read the Torah, every time there's a repetition, they assert there's something additionally being taught. And we're in the last book of the Torah, the book of Deuteronomy. We're getting close to the end of the cycle, and we'll then start all over again after the high holidays. And the book of Deuteronomy is referred to as the Mishneh Torah, the repetition of the Torah. And Moses is confronting his impending death, and he's reviewing the history of the last 40 years of the people of Israel, and he's reiterating the commandments given to the Israelites. So there's a lot of repetition going on. And so Moses spends time repeating, but there's one theme that he keeps going back to in this Torah portion. And the theme is, follow the laws and commandments of the Torah. That's basically a theme. Now, I went through the portion, which is somewhat long, and I drew out, I took out when he does this. And I want to read it to you, because you'll get the sense of what I'm trying to get at. He says, Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 1. And now, O Israel, give heed to the laws and rules that I am instructing you to observe, so that you may live to enter and occupy the land that the Lord, the God of your fathers, is giving you. Follow the laws. Observe them. Verse 5. See, I have imparted to you laws and rules, as the Lord my God has commanded me, for you to abide by the land that you are about to enter and occupy. Verse 40. Observe his laws and commandments, which I enjoy upon you this day, that you may go well with you and your children after you. Verse 44, I'm not done yet. This is the teaching that Moses set before the Israelites. These are the decrees and laws and rules that Moses addressed to the people of Israel. Okay, that's chapter 4. I'm going to go to chapter 5. I'm only going to do 3 chapters, so don't worry about it. Chapter 5, Moses summoned all the Israelites and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the laws and rules that I proclaim to you this day. Study them and observe them faithfully. Laws and rules, observe. But, verse 28, But you, Moses, remains here with me, and I will give you all the instruction, the laws and rules that you shall impart to them, for them to observe in the land that I am going to give you. 2 more. Chapter 6, verse 1. And this is the instruction, the laws and the rules that the Lord your God has commanded me to impart to you. Finally, verse 9, chapter 6. Know therefore that only the Lord your God is God, the steadfast God who keeps his covenant faithfully to 1,000 generations for those who love and keep his commandments. And therefore observe faithfully the instruction, the laws and the rules with which I charge you. One variation after another, but saying the same point. Okay? Now, each of these statements are basically the primary directive of the book of Deuteronomy. You are to observe the laws and commandments that were given to you by God, and your observing them will determine whether you will thrive or not thrive in the land of Israel. Makes sense. The people these laws are given before the people enter the land of Israel. They're told Moses is going to die. He says, I'm going to die, but when you go into the land, you're going to follow these laws and commandments and observe them. Observe these, and what the outcome is, whether you observe them or not, will lead to certain consequences for you, either positive or negatively. Now, this past Tuesday was Tisha B'Av, in the day of commemoration of the destruction of the temple. And the entire thrust of this day of remembrance is the destruction of the temple and the exile was because the Israelites did not live up to the covenant. They didn't observe the laws and commandments. They didn't observe. Now, Reformed Jews are, as I taught last week, don't interpret this day of mourning, Tisha B'Av, in this way. We don't think that God will zap us when we do wrong or don't observe one of the commandments. The world doesn't work that way, and good is not always rewarded, and bad is not always punished, and the fate of the Jewish people is much more complicated than that. But nevertheless, I do think that these verses speak to us in an important way. They give us a perspective about how we should approach Judaism. I believe that they clarify what it means to be a Jew. They speak to how Judaism should become tangible in our lives. And it's not overly complicated, and it's really very obvious, but sometimes stating the obvious is profound. Moses is telling the people of Israel and to us that Judaism is not about feelings. It's not about feelings. Now, there's nothing wrong with feelings. I have a lot of feelings. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them I can control, some of them I can't. But if we seek a strong connection to Judaism, it must be grounded in deeds, not in faith acclamations. We throw the term around Jewish values, and I have to let you on a little secret, and I've read the Torah very carefully over the years. There are no Jewish values stated in the Torah, not one. There are Jewish behaviors that are articulated in the Torah, and when any of us says, when anyone says our lives are guided by Jewish values, we must ask the question, how? Stating values is useless in Judaism. We Jews are radical pragmatists. Judaism says, show me, demonstrate for me. Judaism is filled with wonderful ideas and aspirations: compassion, forgiveness, love, charity, freedom. But they are nebulous. They are completely nebulous without action and without implementation. Let's go back to what I read to you. Moses summoned all the Israelites and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the laws and rules that I proclaim to you this day. Study them and observe them faithfully." Now, let me be very practical, okay? The Sabbath is a wonderful idea, but when you light Shabbat candles, you're doing something that makes them tangible. We believe so strongly in a teaching of freedom. That's a great idea. Act. Make a Passover Seder and tell the story. Eat the bitter herbs. Cry like a slave. You can say, I love the synagogue. Act. Come and worship with the congregation. It matters that you're here tonight, both for our community and for you. I miss my father so much. Act. Come to synagogue and say Kaddish. Do something to remember. It's important to care for the poor. Act. How much am I going to give to address that value that I have? Keeping Judaism is important to me. Act. How much studying am I really willing to do? Recruit a child for a religious school. I want to be a better person. Act. Come and listen to the shofar, which is meant to wake us up morally, ethically, spiritually, interpersonally. I don't want the Jewish people to disappear. Light Hanukkah candles, because they were fighting assimilation. Israel is important to me. Are we willing to visit, even in difficult times? How willing are we to support the institutions that make Israel possible so it can go in the right direction? I'm not making this all up. I think this is exactly what our portion is saying. Stop talking and do something. That's what Judaism is saying. That's what Moses is telling the Jewish people. That's the message of Judaism. Jewish life cannot be rooted in just feelings, inclinations, and platitudes that we say about Judaism. When it is, there's nothing really to do, and it certainly cannot be passed on. And we should refrain from saying that I'm a Reformed Jew and I don't have to do anything. Tell me one Reformed Jewish leader who ever made such an absurd comment. There's never been a rabbi in the New Reformed Temple, and we've had many wonderful rabbis of different flavors. No one has ever said that. There is, of course, Judaism is not an all or nothing proposition. People need to make choices. You can't do everything. And of course, Judaism is not a form of religious imprisonment. We respect the individual, but please, Judaism is about action. Without performing, without turning our values into action, there's nothing there. It lacks substance, it lacks relevance, it lacks impact, and it lacks survivability. Now, friends, here is what Moses is saying. Enough talking. God does not want to hear our platitudes. Our Jewish authenticity is rooted in our deeds. That is the Jewish goal. That is worth our efforts. That is the very essence of the Torah. And I love the words of Benjamin Franklin. A well done is better than a well said. Shabbat shalom.